fantastic football, flavoursome food. But my goodness me, the fever. That's what got me. This is today's Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show. Joining you this morning on Thursday, 2 days after Arsenal's 2-0 victory over Athletic Club. I can only apologise for not being able to join you yesterday or, of course, on Tuesday as well. As you can probably hear from my voice, I'm still not 100% back and ready. But I did do a kind of trial run yesterday evening. I joined FK on the Latte Firm for a show, and it went okay. But the mornings are usually tougher at the moment. I'm feeling better. I'm not feeling recovered yet. You can tell from my voice I'm still not there. Yeah, I'm going to probably be coughing and spluttering and still trying to mute myself whenever that happens to spare you of the noise. But there's a lot to talk about and a lot to get through, and I've got to try and get through as much of this as we can. But I didn't want to leave you without another episode. So do accept my apologies for that. I can't help it. I just had to put my health first. And also, there was just no way I was going to be able to do a show yesterday or the day before. Yesterday, even if I was well, I don't think I would have been able to do the show yesterday. I think I ended up leaving the hotel before 8 a.m. UK time anyway to go and catch my flight. And I'm glad I did do it at that time, because good friend of mine, Nick Callow from Haters, ended up having an absolute nightmare of a day, missing his flight and not getting back until gone midnight UK time last night, going via Milan in the end. So, yeah, thank you to all of you that have sent some very kind messages and kind words my way, and I do appreciate. I did read through as many of them as feasibly possible, and it was a shame that I wasn't feeling up to it, because it was and it would have been an even better, but it was still, even though I wasn't feeling great, a brilliant trip. One of the best football trips, certainly one of the best cities that you can go and visit. But there were some downsides alongside the illness. No fridge magnets being sold. But, you know, I tend to, whenever they're not selling them, I'll try and get one online as best I can, just so it can join the collection. But I did get an Athletic Club keyring, which you should be able to see if it focuses in. Is it going to focus? I don't think it's going to focus. Oh, no, it's not going to focus, but you can kind of see it there. Yeah, the lanyard that I kind of, in some ways, definitely didn't give back when I was supposed to. And of course, as well, for the first time in my career, doing a print shift alongside my Football London shift, which meant that the next morning after the game, that we managed to get a byline in the paper, which is pretty good. I don't know if you can still get this paper from Wednesday, the 17th of September, but if you did pick up the Mirror yesterday, you would have got my byline in the Mirror as well. There is a piece out in the Mirror this morning as well, which does contain some quotes that I've written from Jurrien Timber and Martin Zubimendi as well, so you can go over and get that too. But I just want to say a massive thank you to you all for the support, the everything. I'm lacking words today, but it's. If you'd have said to me, 6 years ago when I quit my job teaching, whether I'd be getting, into my byline into a newspaper, and I could go down to my local newsagent, pick up the paper and see my name after an Arsenal victory in a Champions League game where I've been in Bilbao the night before, I would have said you were mad. So thank you to you all for helping support me and taking me to places where I never thought I'd be, and without you, I wouldn't be there. So genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Just to give you a little bit of a glimpse of what it was like inside the stadium, it's without a doubt, I think, the best atmosphere I've ever experienced. I've had the pleasure of being in some amazing stadiums. I've been to the Parc des Princes and listened to those amazing PSG supporters. Great atmosphere there. The Bernabeu, even places, perhaps even less thought of, like Girona and, of course, St. James's Park in the Premier League is an amazing atmosphere, an amazing stadium. The Eindhoven Stadium, the Philips Stadion in Eindhoven, another amazing atmosphere. But this takes it without a doubt. what an amazing stadium. I'll cut it off there just in case there's any copyright issues with the music. But yeah, just so impressive. It doesn't really come across kind of in the video as much, but if you're in the stadium, it's the whistling in particular inside San Mamés when things aren't going their way and they're whistling at the decisions. There were times, and it didn't help that I wasn't particularly 100%, and I had a bit of a splitting headache anyway. But I was having to feel like there was times where I almost felt like I had to take my hands off the keyboard from typing just to cover my ears because it was so ear-splittingly loud at points. I was chatting to an Arsenal fan on the plane home, and he asked me whether I could hear the Arsenal fans from the press box. And I said, I didn't hear the Arsenal fans once until we scored. And that wasn't because they weren't doing a great job. That wasn't because the fans weren't loud, because he was telling me we were singing our hearts out all game, really producing some noise in our section. But you just couldn't hear them. You could not hear the Arsenal fans at all until there was like a little gap in the noise when Arsenal scored in the second half. That revealed the Arsenal fans and their presence. It was astonishing. And I think, I was treated in the Monday evening when we were there. Athletic put on a little event for the press that were there from the UK to kind of, in some ways, kind of educate us, indoctrinate us, if you will, to the Athletic philosophy, the Basque-only philosophy. And I learned some things that I didn't previously know about Athletic Club. Like, the Basque-only policy is not as strict as I thought that it was. It's not just a case of you don't just have to be born in the Basque country. There are other means by which players can play. There are restrictions still. You can't just kind of move to the Basque country with the intention of your child playing for them. You can't just, for instance, be an academy elsewhere and then move to the Basque country and then all of a sudden you can play for Athletic Club. But say your family moves to the Basque region by natural means, so for like a new job or, for family reasons, in some reason you have to move to the Basque country, and then one day your child grows up having not been born in the Basque country, they can then still play for Athletic. So as long as it's by natural means that you are, a citizen of the Basque region, or of course born there, you can play for Athletic Club. So there are reasons. It's not just through birth that you're able to play for Athletic Club. But it's what an achievement to have that policy and be a Champions League level club. And they are a good side. I know a lot of people probably look back at the Europa League semi-final of last season, where Man United won pretty comfortably there. But overall, they were kind of playing them on easy mode. They lost their heads in that game. They went down to 10 men. It was a pretty comfortable evening for Man United. It wasn't the case for Arsenal. It was not the case at all that Arsenal went there in the same circumstances as Man United did. That was a very different performance from them, especially from what we saw in pre-season as well. But let's say good morning to some people, then we'll go into that as well. I might have missed the stream. I was definitely going to have cut some people off at this point. But Glenn, good morning to you. Southport Gooners, Gooner 76, Maximius, Kirill, Gooner 76, Sids. We've got Steve, we've got Sataki, we've got Satoki, sorry. Brian, we've got Knowledge, we've got Spearmint and Martin, we've got Ken and Paul. We've gone into Natty Tom as well. We've got Jamil. We've got, scrolling down a little bit more, Zed Tom in the chat, Chadwin. We've got other Tom as well in the chat, and Loga. Thank you to you all for listening. If you could drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, that would be greatly appreciated as well. But let's jump into these stories. We begin with Gabriel Martinelli, of course, because there isn't really anywhere else to start. But Gabriel Martinelli, written off by, I think, so many, myself included. We have been talking pretty dismissively of Martinelli of late. And he has had to endure a very difficult month. My colleague, Alex Howe at BBC, did a story around Martinelli the other day, around how that he is aware of kind of what is being said about him and the scrutiny that exists about Martinelli online. And I think that's perhaps why we saw him celebrate in the way that he celebrated after he did score. But it's football at the end of the day. It's part of that. He's not really been through that period yet. And the fact that he's returned that goal, the fact that he's done what he's done, it's a statement. It's a it's a moment to be very, very proud of for him. And not only his goal, but his assists, of course, as well. And, it was obviously a game we're going to go through some individual performances more than the game overall. I'm sure you've heard a lot of podcasts and thoughts around the game overall already. But this is a game that highlighted Arsenal's depth. It highlighted the fact that, we've got these brilliant additions to the squad that we've made. We've added some fantastic players to the group. And, we started Eze on the left and Madueke on the right and Gyökeres through the middle, this kind of new front three that we've got. But it wasn't delivering. It didn't deliver the goal. It was delivering chances. And definitely, I think by the point that Martinelli scored, we absolutely should have been leading the game by that point. I don't think there's much of a debate about that. Gyökeres had, I think, 3 good chances. There was the one-on-one. There was the diving header. There was the header in the second half and the free kick. Gyökeres probably should have had a goal by that point in the game. But overall, we needed to change something. We needed to bring something different on in the second half. And Arteta identified that, and his in-game management returned the win. And his in-game management is something that, we have been critical of Arteta. And so when it goes well, you need to have the front to be able to turn around and say, fair play, Mikel. You've made the changes, you've made the subs, and the subs have delivered the goals. And of course, it wasn't just Martinelli with the goals, but of course, it was also Leandro Trossard, a lovely assist with the Martinelli kind of flick. And then, of course, the goal himself, which does, of course, get a bit of fortune and the deflection and hits the post and goes past Unai Simon. I thought Unai Simon had a really good game in goal for Athletic. It's no surprise he's up there with David Raya amongst those, starting for Spain in the national team. They're both very good goalkeepers. But Leandro Trossard is still very much an asset for Arsenal. Coming off the bench, as he does, having an impact in games. And this is why I was very much of the mindset that, I think keeping him was the right thing. I know I did a show with Charles and Simon talking about, if Arsenal were to receive, say, 20 million at the end of the window, would you take that? And I'm kind of glad that we did keep hold of Trossard, because I think he provides for us still. I think he adds for us still. I think he still has plenty to contribute for us still. So very happy that that Trossard was indeed pivotal to getting the result in this game, as was Martinelli. Just a word for Jurrien Timber's performance, of course, as well, the man I've got on the back of this shirt that I'm wearing currently. Jurrien Timber has been, without question, a astonishing signing for Arsenal, and again had a very, very, very impressive performance. It's just so solid going up and down the pitch. What he provides in the final third. His crossing, I think, is really improving. His partnership with Madueke as well is really developing at quite a rate of knots. And that kind of that collaboration between the right hand side has really forged quite quickly. But defensively, he offers so much. Offensively, offers his technical ability. What he can do with the ball at his feet, the little switches of play, the change of speed, the acceleration, the skill that he possesses, it's just excellent. And I can't give Jurrien Timber enough praise. I can't believe I didn't mention him on the show yesterday of FK, because he is probably my favourite player in the team right now. As is, as FK calls him, Mosquera, because Mosquera is having an absolutely astonishing start to his Arsenal career. Only one time I felt that he made a little error in the game, which obviously led to the Alex Berenguer chance, which we kind of outpaced Mendy, outpaced Mosquera, kind of the passing movement beat him. But other than that moment, Mosquera had a really, really good performance again. It's like we've managed to regen Saliba, and that is probably the highest credit you can give, that you can be without Saliba and we don't look any weaker defensively. I don't think you can say anything of a higher level of praise for a player than that in his position. Let that sit with you for a second. I don't think that you can say anything more complimentary about a defender, that when you are without William Saliba, that a player of this level comes in, of this inexperience, of this naivety, immaturity, and just youth, and come in and have the performances that he is having. He's proven his doubters wrong within a few games, and he's proving to be quite the astonishing piece of business by Arsenal. Very, very, very good. Just saying, says, please interview Mosquera. He doesn't speak English yet. His English isn't great, but he is learning. So when that improves, hopefully one day we'll have the opportunity. I thought Madueke still impressed. Of course, even though he started the game and didn't produce a goal contribution, I still thought he was good in the game. He was a threat. He's pacing behind. I feel like, we're seeing a different Madueke than we saw, especially last year at Chelsea. He just looks like unleashed, unshackled. He just looks like he's been playing with stabilizers on at Chelsea. And at Arsenal, he just looks a different player to me. He just looks a player that's been given a new leash of life. He's turned over a new leaf, a clean slate, all the analogies you want to use, all the similes you want to try and use for this. But he just looks like a player that is just been given so much belief, by this move, by this transfer. And, Saka has not got a divine right to come straight back into this team. He probably will, but he doesn't have a divine right. And that divine right isn't there because of the improvement of Madueke at Arsenal. It's a credit to the coaching staff. It's a credit to the players. It's a credit to the manager. It's a credit to all of this that Madueke has come in. And, goodness me, if you're one of those fans that signed that petition, I think you should be hanging your head in shame, quite frankly, because what a signing he has been for us so early at the beginning of his Arsenal career. I thought Eze was isolated on the left-hand side. I don't think it was necessarily his fault. He didn't have the best of games. I think he had a great chance in the first half. He needed to want it more. He was caught on his heels a little bit. When that pass comes back, he needs to be running into the box, running into the ball to take that chance. Otherwise, it gives the defender the opportunity to make a great tackle, which they did. But I still think Eze was caught a little bit on his heels for that chance. He needed to be a little bit more, wanting it, direct, charging for the ball to finish rather than waiting for the ball to come to him. And I thought he was a little isolated. He still produced threat. He still was important to the game. But I think this is the area of Arteta's kind of in-game management that I think needs, a little bit more of a tweak. Recognizing that Eze is isolated. When he brought on Trossard, I wanted to see Trossard move to the left, Eze come into the middle, play behind Marino, who would have gone up top. But he didn't do that. Trossard and Marino kind of played off one another in the middle. And of course, when Martinelli then entered the fray, that dynamic changed and vindicated Arteta's decision. But I wanted to be I wanted to see some more proactiveness. Now, the question is, should Martinelli start over Eze against Man City? That's the question I've got for you this morning. Is should Martinelli? I'll do a poll. Should Martinelli start not over Eze? I think that's the wrong question. Should Martinelli start on the left for Arsenal on Sunday versus Man City? So Eze, I think for me, would go into the kind of the number 10 position on Sunday. That's what I would do. I'd go Eze, Martinelli, Madueke, Gyökeres. That's what I'd go as my front four for Sunday. But the question is simply, would you start Martinelli on Sunday? Let me know your answer to the question. Doesn't mean that Eze is dropped from the team entirely, but it does mean that Eze moves away from that left-hand side for this game. So let me know with your answer in the comment section and in the poll that we're putting. If you're listening to this on catch up, let us know in the comment section, of course, as well. But yeah, I thought Eze was isolated, and I didn't think we did enough managerially or coaching-wise to remedy that. But it might have just been semantics at that point. Pierre Hincapie and Cristhian Mosquera both made their debuts for Arsenal in this game. They came off the bench, of course, to finish the fixture. And I think just in the little cameo that we saw from both of them, we saw some good things. We've only been exposed to very little of them from a competitive footballing sense, but I thought both of them were solid. They got about the pitch. They broke up play. They were energized. They were really determined to kind of make an impact in the short amount of time. Arteta made kind of a funny quote as well about Hincapie and the fact that he kind of had like the best 6 minutes, if you like, of his Arsenal career. They're the only 6 minutes, of course, of his Arsenal career. But yeah, I do think it was. I do think it was kind of a funny comment. He said that they at least equally important or more important than having this squad. The finishers are going to be more important this season than the starters, and we can change again there, especially with the intensity that we play with. The team starts to drop off. I'm very pleased to see that. Piero comes in and plays 6 minutes, the best 6 minutes he's played. Cristhian is the same, and the attitude that we need from all of us. You know, I think that was, it's a fair comment. You know, it's not wrong. It's the only 6 minutes he's played, but I thought it was a really, really good showing in the little amount of time that we got from both of them. But I've kind of touched on Mikel Arteta's press conference there. The question that I asked Arteta was kind of about the reaction to the players and to the in particular the Martinelli goal. So I've seen the players really gather around Gabby when he scores. Gabriel Jesus actually put on his Instagram that he thinks he really deserves it. And that goal, what does it say about your team that they go around a player like that when they have a moment so good? And he said, that's the spirit. That's why I really enjoy every single day working with them and being part of the team, because the way they look after each other is genuine and they really want the best for each other. And they recognize someone that works every single day in a manner that Gabby does. And you can go through the struggles and through moments, and recognizing that having the capacity to connect with him, I think it would mean a lot, you know. So I thought it was a really important thing that we saw. And Calafiori kind of lifted Martinelli into the air like a trophy that I hope we lift at the end of the season, of course, and almost pointed at him to say, give this guy the credit. You know, in a way, kind of stop writing this guy off. He's still a part of this squad. Support him. He deserves it. He works hard. And I think that's really important. You know, I think it's really important that, you know, we can have our opinions in the transfer window. We can have our opinions about who we think should stay and who should go and what we should change and what we should do. But at the very minimum, when the football's going on and they pull on the red and white shirt or the blue and red and silver shirt, that you're a supporter, that you support them, that you want them to win. You want them to prove you wrong. You want them to achieve things. You want them to do what's best for us. Because there's no one big player. There's no player or manager bigger than Arsenal. Arsenal is the end result always. And anything that benefits Arsenal that is a positive thing should be backed. And that's why whenever any of these players who maybe we've got our opinions about play on that field for Arsenal with the badge on their chest, needs to be supported. And they're supported by their players and each other. And there is a real family aspect as well about that. And I thought that was a really good point. If you want to read the full transcript, you can, of course, go over to the football.london website and read it over there. Now, just a quick roundup of all the Champions League action and a couple of news stories from the last couple of days as well. PSV losing at home to Union Saint-Gilloise. Big result for the Belgian side. Arsenal, of course, winning their game 2-0 in the Basque Country. Brilliant game to kick off things in Turin. Juventus 4, Dortmund 4. Benfica losing 3-2 at home prior to their appointment of Jose Mourinho. Spurs narrowly beating Villarreal in North London. Real Madrid down to 10 men, managed to beat Marseille with a very controversial penalty. I don't think I've seen a worse penalty decision, actually. Maybe the Jota dive for Liverpool, God rest his soul, but that I think up there is with one of the worst penalty decisions that we've seen given. But this is horrendous. Like the penalty call, that the supposed handball, I thought it was absolutely horrendous, this decision that was given that would have obviously taken 2 points off Real Madrid in the race for those top 8 places. And all these games, of course, are relevant for Arsenal. All of these games are relevant for Arsenal. So it's important that we call them out. Olympiacos drew 0-0 with Paphos, who went down to 10 men inside the first 30 minutes, I think. Brilliant result for Paphos. A Cypriot Greek face-off. I don't know which part of Cyprus Paphos does come from, but I wonder what the narrative was around that game. Slavia Prague, who Arsenal will face soon, drew 2-2 with Bodo Glimt at home. Bayern Munich beating Chelsea pretty handily last night as well. Great goal from Cole Palmer, but in the end, Bayern proving to be too strong. PSG as well go top of the table already after match day 1 with their big win. 4-0 winners over Atalanta. Ajax losing at home 2-0 to Inter Milan, another team Arsenal will face. As are Atletico Madrid, who were beaten very late on, you'll never guess, again by Liverpool. Another late goal for them in the competition. There are more games to play tonight. Of course, it's weird. This is the Champions League week, which means there's games on Thursday. Copenhagen host by Leverkusen. Club Brugge play against Monaco. Eintracht Frankfurt take on Galatasaray. Sporting take on Kairat, the Kazakhstan side, new team to the competition. Manchester City take on Kevin De Bruyne's Napoli, and Newcastle host Barcelona in a highlight of match day 1 as well. So they're all the games from this week. But overall, of course, it leaves Arsenal sitting with 3 points, where they want to be, sitting currently 4th in the table behind Bayern, Union Saint-Gilloise, and PSG at the moment, which is, of course, a top 8 position where they will want to stay over the course of the rest of the competition. Arsenal released their team photo for the season, of course, some notable inclusions here. Players, of course, that are currently out injured and trying to come back from injury, the likes of Kai Havertz and Gabriel Jesus, you can see on the far left-hand side there. They're looking to try and get back into the squad. You know, a little bit of a hint as well about Arsenal's leadership group surrounding Arteta there. You've got Saka and Odegaard, captain and vice-captain. And then the third choice captain at the moment is Gabriel Magalhaes, who's been wearing the armband while those two have been injured. And then Declan Rice to the right of Saka, which also gives it a bit of an indication. Then you can look at Jurrien Timber and Mikel Merino as well to the right of those, if you want to call that the 6-player leadership group of the squad, which I think is very important, of course, to highlight as well. So very, very impressive. As impressive as a 15-year-old Max Dowman also being spotted in the top right-hand corner of that photo. And just lastly, a little news story for you all. With the extended loan window open, Arsenal have sanctioned the loan of Maldini Kakuri, the senior now Albanian international, made his debut for Albania over the last international break, played 90 minutes in their game. He has joined Morecambe FC on loan in the National League until the end of the season. The end of the year. He returns to the club in January. It's really easy to think that a loan always goes through to the end of the season. It ends in January. He'll be returned to the club. It's just a 6-month or 5-month loan deal for Maldini Kakuri. So we wish him all the best of luck as well with that switch. I think there was a bit of a disappointment, wasn't there, in the summer? Obviously, all the attention was on the signings that we were making, but we needed to do a better job with the loaning of our younger players and getting them exposure to more senior football and getting them that experience, because it's really, really valuable for them that they do that. Arguably as valuable as making sure that you are aware of the dangers that you may face when you are surfing the internet online, perhaps on a public Wi-Fi service, or maybe you're traveling around the world covering Arsenal, following Arsenal, supporting Arsenal. Well, you need to get a NordVPN. You need to get a VPN, and the only one is NordVPN. There's no other option. NordVPN is the #1 VPN service out there. Not that I'm biased in any way, shape, or form. Not at all. I can personally vouch, having just been abroad, to the brilliance of NordVPN. I mean, I hadn't turned it on at one point during the trip. I was back at the hotel, and after the game, I was like, I'm going to go and watch the highlights of the game. So I go onto the TNT Sports kind of YouTube channel. And I was like, where are the highlights? Why can't I see the highlights? I'm scrolling, I'm searching, I'm typing in the specific highlights. I can't view them. Why can't I view them? Oh, I can't because I'm not in England. Wait, let me just open my NordVPN app, connect to the UK. Boom. Search again. There they are. I can watch the TNT Sports highlights of the game now that my phone believes that, of course, that it is digitally back in the UK. And I was using plenty of Wi-Fi service, of course. The hotel Wi-Fi is a public Wi-Fi service. So making sure that I had my hotel, my VPN service on during the hotel for the majority of the trip was really important. But I remembered to turn it on, of course. And it's a must. You know, you can get a 1 or a 2 year plan. If you get that 2-year plan, you get 4 months extra thrown in free on top of it as well, and a 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not happy with the service for whatever reason as well. Link is in the description. Go to nordvpn.com/Gooner to go and get yourself a great deal. Well, let's go to part 2, your questions and more right after this. Oh, I'm struggling. That was 30 minutes And I've not even done the Q&A yet. That's, yeah. Wow. Oh, okay. We can do this. We can get through. I can do at least 10 minutes. I can try. Let's get through as much as feasibly possible, shall we? I'm going to try and take some of your questions as best I can, and survive these next 10 minutes. And then I've got a day off today. Mercifully, I've got a day off, and then it's the press conference tomorrow, of course. So we're going to get through this, people. We're going to do it. Samuel says, Tom, I misunderstood the poll. Moving Eze centrally if Odegaard is still injured and Martinelli on the left is something I reckon I'd actually do, despite voting no. Well, that's why you got to read the question. That's what I always used to tell my students when I was a teacher. Always read the question. The amount of times that you mess up on a question just because you haven't read it properly. And Samuel, you've fallen into that trap, sir. So far on this vote, 60% of you say no. You wouldn't start Odegaard. Sorry, you wouldn't start Martinelli on Sunday. I disagree with you. Even if Odegaard isn't back yet, I don't think I'd start him. I think I'd start Odegaard on the bench because he's not fully ready. And I think I'd rather be more conscious with him and try and get him back to full fitness before rushing him in to the next game. For me, Martinelli starts on the left. He wasn't offensively. He didn't do enough at Anfield. We knew that. We saw that. Defensively, though, he was still really solid, and that's an element of his game. And I think that I agree with Arteta that you have to sometimes build upon a player's confidence. You have to harness that emotion, harness that confidence that they've built. If you drop him to the bench again after making that impact, what message does that send? Are you sending the right message if you do that? He's also got a good record against Man City. You remember that he scored the only goal in that 1-0 victory during 22-23. So, yeah, I personally would start Martinelli on the left for Arsenal on Sunday. I'd move Eze to the 10. I'd play Madueke on the right and Gyökeres through the middle. That's what I would go for in the game. Then Rice and Zubimendi, of course, as well. So Nicholas says, oh, my God, Tom. The saying is given a new leash of life. I've been saying it incorrectly. Has given a new lease of life on my entire life. And I literally just palmed myself. Is it new leash of life or lease of... I'm now questioning myself. New lease. It's lease, isn't it? Did I say leash? It's definitely lease. It's a new lease of life. I don't know what I said. It's the illness. It's getting to my brain. It's definitely new lease of life, not leash of life. Maybe, yeah. I think it's the amount of like horrible stuff I've got in my throat at the moment that's making me turn my S's into. I'm going to start saying shin soon rather than sin. People get annoyed at me saying sin rather than seen these days. I'm going to start saying shin soon because the amount of horrible stuff around me. Perry says, aren't we delusional if we think Arteta would start anyone else other than Zubi, Rice and Marino in the midfield? Not even Waneri. The guy wants to be secure defensively than anything else. What are your thoughts? Maybe. But Arsenal haven't conceded a single goal from open play this season so far. The only goal that Arsenal have conceded in their first 5 games, which, by the way, have been against Man United away from home, Leeds at home, Nottingham Forest at home, Liverpool away, Athletic Club away in the Champions League. Arsenal haven't conceded a single goal from open play. The only goal that we have conceded has been that Dominic Szoboszlai free kick. Not only that, but I said this on the FK show last night. Arsenal haven't conceded a shot on goal they haven't conceded a chance that exceeds 0.12 XG. We haven't conceded a chance on goal that exceeds 0.12 XG in our first 5 games. That's staggering. Absolutely staggering. And Perry says, yeah, but not much offensively. Not much offensively. We've scored 11 goals in these first 5 games. 3 against Forest, 5 against Leeds, 2 against Athletic Club, 1 against Man United. 11 goals, 1 conceded. I mean, 1100% increase on goals scored to goals conceded. It's a pretty darn good stat. So talking about not much offensively, I don't know where you're coming from, mate. I just don't know. Just saying this, but when we are at home, we must be more attacking because we've scored 8 goals in 2 games at home. We've scored 8 goals in 2 games, and we need to be more attacking at home. What are people watching? I don't know what's happening. It's like people's expectations have just gone to this stratospheric level. I struggle with this. Like, if you look at the Man United game, for instance, first game of the season, all the new signings come in away from home in a ground that we are horrendous at historically, that we've had, 3 wins at in, I think, 20 years? We had 0 in something like 15 years prior to Arteta's arrival at Old Trafford. We go there, we win. Yes, I don't think particularly convincingly. We had 12 turnovers and counterattacks that should have led to better chances. But this idea that we play ugly football, this idea that we went there and didn't play attacking football, we had 12 counterattacks that should have led to better chances. And had they had led to better chances, it would have looked a lot different. But again, first game of the season, the teething problems are there. Still getting new players involved, integrated. We then win the next game 5-0. We then go to Anfield on our next game with a better team in the first half. I mean, the amount of people I've spoken to in the media these days over the last kind of week about that Liverpool game, it has been really eye-opening to kind of get the views of those, very much in football. I was speaking to Alistair Bruce Ball of BBC 5 Live about that game, and speaking to a few others as well. And the perception that Arsenal went there and played ugly football seems to have just been the Peter Schmeichel comment. That seems to be the only comment so far that's really perpetuated its way through the media beyond those that have just been rage baiting. Arsenal went to Liverpool to win. Arsenal went to Liverpool to try and snatch a victory. It wasn't the way I would have liked it to go on. I would like to see it be more imposing. I would have liked us to change a few things in the second half, but we were the better team in the first half. And I felt ultimately we're very unlucky not to come away with something. Next game of the season, we win 3-0 against Forest. Brand new manager. No way of knowing what on earth is going to go down in that game. Don't concede a single goal again. And score 3 good goals in the game as well. Again, integrating a brand new player into the starting 11 for the first time in Eze. Mosquera, I think, starting his first game in an Arsenal shirt as well. And then, of course, we go to Athletic Club in the Champions League. Very difficult ground to go to. Very, very hostile environment. Stay defensively secure. Create plenty of chances. We created plenty of chances in that game. And then, of course, snatch the victory by making some proactive changes in the second half. Brave enough to take off Victor Gyökeres to rest him for the weekend. Have the confidence that you can bring on Trossard instead of him. And, of course, those changes prove the difference. This idea that we're ugly, this idea that we don't play attacking football, this idea that Arsenal are reductive is just so untrue. Why do you keep falling for this narrative? Why do you keep buying into this narrative? Arsenal were handed the most difficult of starts to a season. They then got chucked with a European away game on the opening day of their campaign and given, yes, a lower league opposition, but one where they got to go all the way up to Stoke on a Wednesday night, the classic English football cliche. And then, of course, have got to go to St. James's Park a few days after that. And yet Arsenal so far have won all their games bar one, where they had champions, and were so very close to coming away with something in that game as well. Where on earth are the complaints coming from? Off the back of a record-breaking transfer window where we've signed 8 signings, we've brought in the striker everyone wanted, we've stolen Eze away from Spurs, we've gone out and signed a winger that's proving all of you doubters wrong, that signed a pathetic petition after he was and saw then graffiti put over Hornsey Road. He's gone and signed a brilliant defensive midfielder that's already upgraded the number 6 role to the team. We've got a bargain of a centre-half that's proven to be nearly as good as Saliba in his first few games. And overall, we've managed to get players like Calafiori performing brilliantly, all the while not having Bukayo Saka, not having Kai Havertz, not having Ben White, and not having Martin Odegaard for plenty of these games either because of injury. And you're still complaining. What on earth is wrong with you? We've got a super chat that's coming as well from Jean, who says, I'm annoyed that we Arsenal supporters don't act as the Liverpool supporters when there are negative trends in games for us. I really think it helps Liverpool to get matches over the line. how to improve. And he dropped that super chat in twice. I don't know if it's charged you twice, John. I hope it hasn't. But thank you for the kind words and the kind donation. And in terms of how do we improve, Liverpool go for it all the way through the game, to the end. They keep battling away, hammering away at the dam until it breaks. And, for Arsenal in those games, you think about the game last night. They kept going, Arsenal. They kept going. They made changes. They kept attacking. And eventually, they broke down a very defensively rigid and impressive Athletic Club side and got the goal that they needed. And they did that against Leeds, and they did that against Nottingham Forest as well. And they did that against Man United, of course. And they managed to secure the victory in those games. And unfortunately, we couldn't do it at Anfield, but we very nearly did come away with something, and arguably could have come away with something, and we're unlucky not to. So, yeah, I think that it's about how do we improve? We grow, we build. The team continues to gel. The team continues to adapt. The team continues to integrate its new players, and it becomes a unit. And I think already we're having a great start to the season. Backer Lasagna, get well soon, bud. Thank you for your kind support over the last 33 months, mate. Lucas says Mosquera or Saliba for City. Big up, Tom. Love TGC. Thanks, mate. And thank you for your membership as well. I think if Saliba's fit, I start him. Not because it's a downer on Mosquera, just because Saliba's record against Man City has been excellent. And Paul's been a member now for 19 months on the channel as well. Thank you, Paul, for your kind support as well. Steve, I hope you're doing well, my friend. Champions at home, Liverpool never got a mention, yet the media deemed us negative. Why am I so surprised? Because we lost. That's one element. We lost the game. So ultimately, we are going to come under the spotlight somewhat more in that sense. But the narrative that was spun by, some horrible comments by Peter Schmeichel. Peter Schmeichel's comments were utterly ridiculous. So hollow and baseless and so contradictory to the game that we witnessed, of course, as well. And that ultimately does feed things too. Greenwood says, Tom, don't get agitated over these comments. There will always be people who hate. These people are our rival fans or glory hunters. I'm not agitated. I'm inspired to just kind of set the record straight. That's how I view it, at least. Shawnito says, Tom, they're all scared of what this team can achieve. I just want us to batter Man City and then Newcastle match. It's very important for me. We need to win both games. If Arsenal come out, and I said this after the Liverpool game, if Arsenal come out of the first 6 games with 15 points, they have done incredibly well. If Arsenal come out of those first 6 games of the season where we've played at Old Trafford, at Anfield, at St James's Park, hosted Man City, hosted European side Nottingham Forest now, had to go away in our first Champions League game. We then have Olympiacos at home, West Ham at home, Fulham away, Atletico at home, Palace at home, Burnley away, Slavia Prague away, Sunderland away, until the 8th of November and the end of that next international break block. There's a tough run after that November international break. We then got Spurs, Bayern and Chelsea all back-to-back. Over the space of 7 days, 8 days probably, we'll play Spurs, Bayern and Chelsea. It's going to be a really tough run of games in November. But until then, we've got a run where we should be looking to win every single game that we play. Every single game that we have there. In the league and the Champions League, we should be looking to win all of those games. And if Arsenal can come through by beating City, by beating Newcastle, which is no mean feat, it is not a given that we do that. It's not a given that Arsenal are able to beat those 2 teams. And, it wouldn't surprise me if we maybe drop points in one of those 2 games. But we have the strength. We have the quality. It sucks that we don't have our talismanic player, Saka. It sucks that we don't have the depth at centre-forward in Havertz to come in as well, especially after that head injury to Gyökeres. It sucks that we don't have the likes of Ben White yet fully ready and fit. It sucks that Odegaard's perhaps not ready and fit either. We'll have to wait and see until Arteta's press conference tomorrow. All of that is incredibly gutting. But the fact that we have a squad that we still are confident to go into those games and potentially get wins in, that's great. And if you can beat City at home, I don't expect the win that we got like last season, the 5-1. I think City are better now than they were then, arguably. And I think their win, the other day proved that against Man United, even though Man United are a mess, but still, it's going to be interesting to see, how they go. And of course, they're playing tonight. And Arsenal have a little bit of a boost, don't they? They played on Tuesday, Arsenal. City play on Thursday at home tonight against Napoli. They have 2 days less recovery than us against a good side in Napoli, champions of Italy. You'd hope that maybe that is in some ways going to be beneficial for Arsenal even though we've had a day of travel, of course, which is, kind of cuts the advantage a little bit, but that's really important. I am going to have to cut the show there. I'm really sorry. I'd love to take more of your questions, but I just don't think I can do it. As I say, it's been a really difficult couple of days health-wise. It's just a bit of man flu. It's nothing to worry about. There are people out there that are suffering way worse than me, and I don't take that for granted for a second. It's just, I need to know my limits. Thank you for your support. Thank you for making stuff like this happen. I cannot tell. I can't actually explain. And I don't want to get a little bit emotional, but the reason why this is so important to me is because if you've been listening to the show for a long time, not necessarily a long time, but at least for the last few years, you'll know that I lost my granddad a couple of years ago. Now, it's flown by. It's actually silly how long it is since that day. But my granddad was incredibly proud of me when I was a teacher. He would boast to all of his friends. He would go to church pretty much 2, 3, 4 times a week. That man was one of the most dedicated Christians you'll ever know. He would go to church non-stop, 3 days a week. Nicest man on the planet. Never known a purer human being than him. And he would always boast about the fact that I was a teacher. And he'd go around to all his friends at church and say, Tom's doing this, Tom's doing that. He's teaching this, he's. And when I left teaching when he was alive, I always felt a little guilty about that. I always felt a little bit, not that I'd let him down, but I just knew how proud he was of me as a teacher. And that was always a profession I thought that he looked up to me doing and being so incredibly proud of. And when I left that, I know that I think a little part of it, even though he 100% would have, supported me in whatever I wanted to do, I just knew there was a little part of me that felt, and a little part of him that maybe was like gutted about the fact that I did that. And the fact that I've got here, I would have loved to have showed him this. I would have loved to have just said to him, if you can, pop down to the newsagent, pick up a copy of the Mirror, go to the back page, and just have a look. That's something that I will be incredibly sad. And my nan as well, who sadly I lost when I was at university around, I think 2014, 15. Both of them. I lost my other 2 grandparents before I was born. I never knew them. But those, it would have been a great moment. And I wish they could see it. And maybe they can. Who knows? Who knows what happens in this world? But, to be able to have this, to hold this in my hand is, Anyway, I'm going to stop before I get a little bit emotional about that. But thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for doing everything you've done. Thank you, Matt, for your donation. I didn't do that speech for the donations. But thank you, Matt. And I will be framing it 100%. I'll be putting it up on the wall somewhere. And if you're in the UK or if you're anywhere, you can get the Mirror. There is another piece this morning in the Mirror which you can go and pick up, which should contain, as far as I'm aware, another piece from the game and some thoughts from Jurrien Timber and Martin Zubimendi as well. So if you're able to go to the newsagent and pick up or get someone to get it for you, go and check it out. I'm going to walk up there a little bit later when I've recovered from this show and see if indeed that is the case. But hopefully it is. And there should be some quotes in there as well. But thank you for your kind words. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning, bright and early, 8 a.m. And then it's Mikel Arteta's press conference as well, which will be there to hear from the man himself. Thank you so much for listening. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.